So briefly, the kind of plan for today is I will give a brief introduction to this Birds of Feather group, as well as some of the ways that we've been thinking about data as a group. As well, following this, we'll give a spotlight talk from Sabina Linelli. We'll be discussing one of the core partners that are part of this group, based out of the Technical University of Munich, and this is the Ethical Data Initiative. And following this, we're looking for some community engagement from everyone here, some feedback about how to get involved, possible future work to bring this work forward. And we'll then wrap up with conclusion in the last 10 minutes of the session. So there are many people that I would like to acknowledge before starting this session, and then we can do some brief introductions of some of the members of this group. And so firstly, thank you to everyone who's here right now for attending the inaugural Data Ethics Birds of a Feather session at today's RDA plenary. This is amazing to have a space here to speak to you all, and it's great to have so many people interested in these conversations. I would like to extend my thank you to the RDA Secretary General, Hilary, who we've known for several years now and who has always made such a great effort of bringing us into conversations at the RDA and participating in some of the core discussions there. So thank you, Hilary, and as well to Arina and Connie, whose guidance and support has really made this meeting possible. So thank you so much. And last but not least, also thank you to the core members of the group who have helped organise today's session. So Sabina, Louise, Kim, and Paul. And I might just call on you quickly now just to briefly introduce yourselves before we get started with the session. So Sabina, would you like to quickly introduce yourself?
Yes, with pleasure. Thank you very much, Nathanael. And thanks to everybody for joining. It's wonderful to see such a group of people from all over the world. Some people we know already and others of you we haven't met yet. So we look forward to the session as a way to get to know each other. And I am a professor at the Technical University of Munich, and I'm the research director of the Ethical Data Initiative. And you'll hear much more from me in a little while.
Fabulous. Thanks, Sabina. Louise?
Oh, hi, everyone. It's lovely to see so many people on the call. My name is Louise Bezuidenhout. I'm based at Leiden University at the Center for Science and Technology Studies. The reason I got involved in this group, not only because it is my area of research interest, but I used to be the co-chair of the CoData Data Ethics Task Group, which at the close of that task group evolved into this multi-initiative collaboration between the RDA, CoData WDS, and my center, CWTS. So I'm really pleased that it's now found a home and such great organizers in Nathanael and Sabina, and look forward to seeing what happens going forward.
Thanks, Louise. Kim?
Yeah, hi. Yeah, I'm really pleased to be here. I'm also based at the Technical University of Munich. I'm a postdoctoral fellow here, and I'm with the education strand of the Ethical Data Initiative. So looking forward to the rest of the session.
Thanks, Kim. And Paul?
Yes, hello. Pleasure to meet you all. My name is Paul Trautmannsdorf. I'm also here a researcher at the Chair of Philosophy and History of Science and Technology in Munich, and together with Kim, leading the education pillar in the Ethical Data Initiative.
Great to have you here, Paul. And just to briefly introduce myself, I'm Nathanael Sheehan. I'm a finishing PhD student at the University of Exeter, where my research has focused on data sharing in public health. I draw on qualitative and quantitative methods to understand this, and Sabina and Louise's work has been instrumental in the ways in which I've been thinking about data sharing in my work. So it's great to be here. Thank you again to everyone who's made this session possible.
Nathaniel, really sorry. Maybe could
yep.
you just let also Stefan introduce himself, just for the sake of completeness of the
idea. Stefan?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. Thank you. My name is Stefan Güttinger. I'm a lecturer in philosophy of data and data ethics at the University of Exeter, and I am the research lead for the EDI in Exeter. And I work on reproducibility in the life sciences and automation and AI in the life sciences. Thank you.
Great to have you here, Stefan. So to begin with, I thought that it would be useful to kind of think about a brief history, but a very incomplete history of data ethics at the RDA. And if I've missed out anything here, please do put it in the chat, because this is all very, very useful. But I think it would be fair to say that the Research Data Alliance already has a long history of advancing ethical data practices across diverse research communities around the world. And some of the key initiatives that have come out of the RDA have been things like the International Data Sovereignty Interest Group, who developed and promoted the CARE principles for Indigenous data governance, which are now widely adopted globally and sort of well known outside of even the kind of RDA ecosystem. There have also been previous interest groups which have been focusing on kind of data ethics more broadly. So these were the ethics and social aspects of data and data and context interest groups. And as well at this year's plenary, there are also a number of ethical data kind of groups and sessions going on. And so I believe on Thursday, there is the Ethics in Agricultural Data Working Group presenting, who are developing approaches for long-term data stewardship, crisis data activation, and aligning sovereignty with open science within the agricultural data space. And also in collaboration with them, but they're also presenting, I believe, tomorrow morning, is the AI and Data Visitation Working Group, who are thinking about responsible AI governance frameworks for research data. But this group, I think, adds to this already existing history of groups and people thinking about data ethics at the RDA. And so our group believes that there is this kind of growing need for a coordinated discussion of data ethics within the RDA, within the organizations that make it up and the individuals who do the data work. And because ethical questions around data governance, AI, and responsible research practices are becoming increasingly more central to the ways that global research infrastructures are managed, organized, and run. And so this Birds of a Feather group aims to connect many of the existing initiatives who are already working within this space and the communities who are actually doing the work. And we believe that this group can create kind of shared forum for dialogue on data ethics across disciplines and organizations within the RDA, contribute to a range of international conversations on responsible data and AI governance, and align ethical discussions across partners in the RDA, CoData, World Data Systems, and the Ethical Data Initiative, as well as many of the organizations that you yourself might be part of. And we hope that in the end that this will support trustworthy, equitable, and transparent scientific and research practices. And we have some planned contributions or ideas around how this group might be able to produce a number of outputs that will be useful for the community, including kind of practical guidance, some shared resources like glossaries, case studies, and policy briefings. But we also really look forward to hearing more from you about what are some of the other contributions that you think could be useful to come out of a group like this. And I think just as now a kind of small segue into thinking about at least how some of us are thinking about data, this is maybe a good starting point. And so we would say data are, not data is. And this might sound like a bit of an annoying linguistic phrase here, but really data are not one thing. Data can be many things. And so the kind of confusion around what data are kind of comes from the kind of history of the etymology of the term itself. So the Latin word dare means kind of to be given. And so there's a long history of understanding data as given by phenomena. But philosophers, sociologists, historians of science have long emphasized that data is not as much given as it is kind of taken. And it is the result of mediated and situated interactions between researchers and the world. And data are not just one thing, they're not just numbers or files on a computer, but rather data can be a diverse range of different forms and formats, from symbols, sounds, texts, observations, and many more things. And we can also think about data relationally. And if we want to define maybe data in some sort of more kind of core way, we could understand data as having two core characteristics. And that is that data are treated as potential evidence for one or more claims about phenomena, and they are formatted and handled in ways in which enable its circulation among individuals or groups for the purpose of analysis. And this definition comes from Sabina Leonelli in her relational data framework. And so the image to the right, which comes from a paper called What Distinguishes Data from Models, shows this kind of cyclical life cycle of research and the ways in which kind of data moves between that. So we can think about how knowledge informs further interactions with the world, which produces objects, which are processed as data, which are ordered as models representing the world and interpreted as knowledge, and the cycle goes on. But we know that data plays an instrumental role in this relationality between objects, models, interactions. And so why is there a focus on data ethics? Well, many of us believe that the modern data management climate can be understood where ethics is somewhat separate from science. It is one form that you need to complete doing research rather than something that is integrated throughout the process and also reflected on at several points of the research. There tends to be a focus on explainability and fairness rather than some of the core sociological and political issues in which underpin data in modern times. As well, we have seen that AI has accelerated the urgency of privacy, trust, and quality concerns, where big corporate AI companies are kind of not really paying attention to many of the standards and even laws in which currently focus on best practices within data. Also, something like we could say that misinformation has become endemic, and this promotes a real kind of threat of understanding what data we can trust. And we kind of exist in this current geopolitical atmosphere that has become so hostile to anything deemed inclusive or diverse. And we've seen that in the ways in which the Trump administration has been discussing kind of new or removing grants for many researchers in the US. And if you want to kind of learn a little bit more about this, there's a link here to a blog post from the EDI town hall last year, where we went into a little bit more detail about these things. But also just to say, there are also a number of different kinds of pressing topics currently within data ethics. And these are summarized in an EDI paper, but just to kind of bring you into a little bit of context about them, and also so you know about lots of the issues in which many of us are kind of really thinking about right now. This includes injustice and bias, thinking about how data collection, sharing, and interpretation can inform many different types of bias, whether that's perceptual, implicit, explicit, credibility bias, algorithmic bias, sampling bias. There's many different forms of bias in which shape much of contemporary data work, thinking about inequity and access. So it would be fair to say that the benefits of data do not affect all regions and populations equally. And often there are times where actually access conditions replicate existing global inequalities and maybe even perpetuate them. There is a big focus at the moment on ideas around privacy and confidentiality. This is not just around individuals, but non-humans, human life forms, communities and environments as well. and these are essential to safeguard, because if not, it poses greater risks of misuse, surveillance, data breaches, and unauthorized tracking. Transparency and trust are two kind of words and concepts that we hear so often with data, because quite often data practices lack these things. People are unaware of what data are collected, in what context and how they're used. We also believe that ideas around openness and ownership are also key to discussions in data ethics. Openness obviously aims to democratize knowledge, but unreflective openness may advantage well-resourced actors, people who can actually have the material resources to be able to access data, is definitely something that is kind of geographically not equal. And there is also the risk of circulating less representative data sets and also relying on undervalued labor or unpaid labor to make openness or ownership happen. Misuse and error. So obviously, large-scale data analysis sometimes can lack proper auditing and quality controls, making errors difficult to identify or correct. There are the big issue at the moment of both environmental sustainability. So data ecosystems really require significant resources for maintenance and energy use, raising sustainability concerns. And last but not least, there is also the risk, or the kind of core area of artificial intelligence. This is where the AI and data visitation group have really been focusing on their work. But AI obviously relies on vast amounts of data, which is often harvested without clear ethical guidance or governance. So I think that kind of at least explaining this a little bit provides a little bit of the theoretical backgrounds of where we're coming from, and also provides this nice segue for the spotlight talk of today's session. And that is from Sabina Leonelli. As she introduced before, she is the Professor of Philosophy and History of Science and Technology at the Technical University of Munich. She is the co-director of the Ethical Data Initiative and the Public Science Lab, which are both based at the Technical University of Munich. And she has also been working on data ethics, one could say, for over the past decade. And she has two fantastic books, which I would recommend everyone to go out and read. So the 2016 Data-Centric Biology, which is a philosophical study of biological data, and also the more recent Philosophy of Open Science book, which is available open access for Cambridge on Cambridge Elements right now, which is a great overview of some of the kind of philosophical debates concerning open science in the kind of current landscape. So with that, I will allow Sabina to share her screen and her slides, and yeah, look forward to hearing from you, Sabina.
Thank you very much, Nathanael, for organizing and for the wonderful introduction. And in fact, before moving on to my slides, I also wanted to ask Suchit Anand and Kate Bailey to introduce themselves briefly, who are co-directing the EDI with me. Suchit, do you want to briefly introduce yourself?
Oh, thank you, Sabina. And thank you, everybody. It is great to see all of you today. So my name is Suchit Anand, and I'm leading the policy and outreach for the Ethical Data Initiative. Thanks again for organizing this session, Nathanael and everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, Suchit. And Kate?
Hello, everybody. It's wonderful to be here with you today. I am Catherine Bailey. I'm based at the University of Exeter in the UK, and I'm Operations Director with the Ethical Data Initiative. It's great to be here.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And with this, I'll shift to my quick talk. So I don't particularly, I hope I'm not going to keep you busy for too long, but the idea here is to give you a sense of some of the activities we've been developing in the space of data ethics in the context of the Ethical Data Initiative. This has been all the way through, in fact, in dialogue with the Research Data Alliance, which is one of our official partners, and also with various other organizations, the Leiden Center that Luis is part of, and the World Data Systems and CODATA, to mention just a few, Quara, and so on and so forth. And so what we're hoping indeed is for today to share thoughts with you, maybe exemplifying some of the potential ideas and potential initiatives that one can participate in through what we are doing through the EDI, but basically really trying to think together going forward about what the Birds of a Feather Group could do in the context of the RDA. So just to give a quick introduction to the EDI, the foundation of the work that we are doing is very much in research, and particularly research that comes from qualitative and quantitative studies of data use across the sciences and beyond the sciences. We find research data, of course, a bit everywhere in society. And this is also very grounded on the fact that many of us are philosophers, historians, social scientists that work in collaboration with natural scientists and data scientists and engineers, but also are thinking about those issues, if you want, from a sort of meta-level perspective too. And we have three branches that emerge from this kind of ongoing research: one to do more with policy, one to do with education, and one to do with engagement. And of course, these talk to each other quite a bit, as do we. So Nathanael has already introduced what we mean by data ethics. I will only add to what you already said, that we're really thinking about this not just a set of principles. Of course, we're all very aware of the fact that there are a variety of principles that give us a steer when it comes to thinking about what does it mean to handle data responsibly. But we're really thinking about it as a living ethos. So as an attitude, as a way of thinking about every decision made in the context of data being circulated and shared, so that we're actually sensitive to the implications of decisions made at all of these different stages and to the values and decisions we're making in that context. One of the things, again, that Nathanael has mentioned briefly, I will go back to this again briefly, there is a suspicion, let's put it this way, and certainly an argument put forward by many parts of the research landscape, particularly within commercial uses of data, that the advent of generative AI is actually resolving some of the issues we have with responsible data use, because it provides us with all sorts of ways of bootstrapping decision-making and augmenting the capability to do data mining and possibly even interoperable data use. At the same time, there is also arguments to the extent, for instance, that, well, we now have enough data in our system, so we can just let AI do its work, which we think are basically really misguided, partly because, as we all know, at the RDA, many of the data that we potentially could have access to, in fact, don't have access to because they're proprietary or there's some sort of intellectual property regime or sensitivity around them. And also we know that data are, in fact, data that are available are hugely skewed along the lines of who, in fact, has the capability of producing them and putting them online and making them usable. And typically, this skew goes along discriminatory lines and post-colonial lines of favoring places which are richer and better resourced against places which, in fact, don't have maybe that many resources and are being discriminated against for all sorts of reasons throughout the history of science. Also, the idea that AI will solve the data problems. One of the things that we are very concerned with at EDI is the fact that actually many of the issues that are RDA, we know, continue to be central to data management and are unresolved. Really don't get resolved simply by putting AI to work. Things, for instance, to do with data semantics and the use of keywords, and the architectures of data contain a lot of decision making, which is very often very fraught, has all sorts of social implications and social contexts, and this needs to be taken into account through human labor, typically, and decision making when putting together data systems. Also, the idea that humans will soon be obsolete in these systems. I think at the RDA, we know very well the kind of hard graft that goes into making data systems usable and keeping them so in a way that actually keeps satisfying the evolution of technologies, but also of the goals and the interest and the context and knowledge that we have when we're trying to put data to use. So again, we don't think this works very well. So within that, ethical and resilient data practices continue to be integral to how we think about data analysis and research. And one of the things that's really important when thinking about the ethics of research more generally is thinking about how do we think about the human judgments, the priorities and the values we infuse into the construction of data systems and systems of data reuse. And how do we make those systems more participative and inclusive in thinking about, in fact, who should be involved in dialogue around the reuse and the governance of particular types of data? What kind of theories, assumptions, and values do we infuse our systems with? Which ones become entrenched into the ways in which data are visualized, for instance? How do we think about this in terms of then continuing research and bringing in maybe new stakeholders or new publics into this kind of work? And how do we think about the implications of all of this? And in the general spirit of trying to support fast science, particularly under emergency conditions, but really not try to support rushed science, where we're trying to automate everything and do things quickly, but in fact, we don't take account of the potentially really problematic longer-term implications of the decisions we're making, we're putting together data infrastructures. So some of the stepping stones for the kind of work that we are doing is to try indeed and support data management in relation to social needs and prospective reuse. And here, indeed, RDA has done a lot of work to that extent, some of which I've also reported in this very short commentary I've published in the Harvard Data Science Review, in case you're interested in seeing at least what could be some of the alternatives to straightforward data sharing. How do we think about data governance in ways that actually continues the work of trying to work all together on our data resources, but without forcing straightforward data sharing in situations where data can be exploited and the data subjects on which data is being acquired can also be potentially harmed. We are trying to align the scientific work that we're doing with policy work to raise awareness, but also to think about the framings, the governance, the policies that will continue to support the funding and the governance of data infrastructures going forward. In that sense, we also are very keen on transdisciplinary work. We're very aware of the fact that in RDA, as everywhere else, data work involves expertise coming from all sectors in society, not just academia, and so trying to involve them as much as possible. Also really trying to support marginally resourced in low resource settings. And in that sense, we work with a variety of partners in the majority world, trying to make sure that we listen to their concerns and actually foster the building of data infrastructures and governance in ways that actually can really support their needs and their demands. And we are, as I said, doing quite a bit of work also to provide, if you want, more conceptual and philosophical grounding to some of this work. Part of this is encapsulated in work that I've published under the heading of environmental intelligence. This, again, you find in the Harvard Data Science Review. One of the things that's been really wonderful about doing this kind of work for me is that it's really happened in relationship and in dialogue with many people who have been very active in Research Data Alliance. And indeed, one of the nice things about this paper is that it's followed in that same issue by 13 commentaries, very eloquent, sometimes pretty long commentaries, which are providing the viewpoints of many people in our community, including actually Hillary as the Secretary General of the RDA, but many of the people who have been very involved in the RDA and adjacent to its activities for a long time. Education is a very important point for us. How do we think about training, both training researchers, but also training policymakers and training the trainers, if you want, the people that are then responsible to spread this word in thinking about this kind of work. And I'll say more in a second about this. And the idea is also to work very, very closely in association with domain experts. We believe that this is really the starting point for conversations about research ethics and data ethics. Partly because really what this means is paying a lot of attention to the context and the specific situations under which we handle data, the goals that different stakeholders in those discussions are trying to achieve, and the potential implications for the environments, the contexts, and the communities that are involved in that work. So in that sense, one of the things we've been also initiating at the EDI is every year to try and have a spotlight on a particular topic that we think is very important in the setup of data ethics discussions worldwide, but we also have a lot of in-house expertise in trying to handle and trying to provide a platform and capacity for these discussions to keep happening. So for this year, we have a spotlight on recommender systems and their use for research and beyond. And this is, of course, on the idea that recommender systems are an important entry point into AI. There are very important moments of collecting data, very often also semi-automated. So we have to pay particular attention about what kind of assumptions are made within these kinds of systems. They underpin the use of many AI applications and data collection engines. And one of the issues, the problems we see with recommender systems is the very vast majority of them are set up to collect the preferences of individuals. And when one thinks about how do we then use those preferences and the related data to serve the social good or public interest, whichever way you want to call the idea of serving the collective, it becomes very unclear to think about what this really means and how these algorithms and related data collection and data use efforts can do this. And so the work that we're doing at EDI is to try and bring together people. We just had a conference on this last year that you can find on our website. You can find the videos and soon also the summaries of what happened there. And we would be very happy to talk with people further about this particular topic. The point person for this is Silvia Milano, my colleague in Munich, who is actually one of the research leads for the EDI. One thing, as I said, that we are really keen on is work on education. And here, this is where the work of Kim and Paul, that just introduced themselves at the start of the session, is absolutely fundamental, working with me here in Exeter. One of the things that we're doing is we've introduced an innovative format for teaching in our own university, which we call Data Ethics in Practice. Is a data clinic. The idea really came from thinking about what our colleagues in the law are doing when lawyers are very often opening up their teaching through clinics that actually bring in people who may have need of legal services but don't have the facilities or the capability to actually procure it themselves or to pay for it. We're doing something similar by partnering with different partner organizations, every time a different one, to try and think about what are their challenges to do with data practices and issues, and then have a group of master students typically work on this together with us so that the students learn together with us as instructors about data ethics and governance, but at the same time, we actually do some work with and for these partner organizations to provide them with some more capability and some recommendations as to how those challenges may be met. So the idea here is that everybody involved learns at all times, and also we produce materials typically from these data clinics that are made available through our website and through various channels that we have of communication, and can then be accessible to the whole community that work on data practices. To give you a sense of what this looks like, these are data clinics that we've been carrying out over the last year. One of them on the use of AI in fintech in Western Africa, together with the Center for Law and Innovation in Rwanda. One of them on the use of the thinking about data ethics in the development of green energy dashboards, together with Goal 100 Dashboards, a company in Germany, an NGO. And then we've done some work on secondary use of health data for the European health data space in collaboration with the Austrian National Public Health Institute. For next year, we have already planned work on the colonial legacies of data collection in museums of natural history in partnership with the Museum für Naturkunde in Berlin. Another data clinic on on thinking about where and how we store data that we think of as fundamental to public interest, particularly in this case for agricultural and food-related research, and how do we store them, and potentially how do we free them from what many people still see an enslavement to commercial web platforms like Amazon Web Services, for instance. And we're doing this work with the Periodic Table of Food initiative. And then we're going to do a clinic also together with WWF, thinking about the ethical and responsible use of generative AI for their own activities. We're very, very happy to hear from prospective partners as to doing work in future years. And we're also, of course, now producing documents and documenting these kind of activities so that eventually this model of doing teaching and education around data ethics can be made available to everybody at RDA and beyond, and potentially be picked up for use at other institutions. And of course, we're very happy to hear from people who are doing similar things in their own institutions. Just to give you a sense of what some of the students have been thinking about those clinics, there's been quite a lot of enthusiasm from there in working with external partners. You can see here, made the learning experience more tangible, made them think about how data actually come into being and the role of context in shaping decisions around data, and in fact, make principles, and particularly principles used in data ethics, much more tangible through engagement with concrete practices of data storage and maintenance, and trying to do this really by working on cases rather than just talking about them. One of the things we're hoping that will come out of these kinds of experiences, and more generally the research that we're doing within the EDI team and together with many, many partners around the world, is what we're calling data stories. These are going to be brief videos that will explore particular case studies that we're working on, and trying to highlight the implications of decisions and ethical decisions around data use at different points of these use cases, so that we can actually illustrate what is going on and how we're thinking about data ethics as a living ethos. And we're going to make them as much as possible interactive, so that people who are watching these videos can also participate and actually choose different ways of actually making these cases go, so that there is kind of also a choose your own inventor kind of flavor to these kinds of things. We're also working on a glossary and a concept map for the concepts, the literature, and the terms that relate particularly to data ethics and responsible data usage, and also, of course, relating to responsible AI, that are already partly available on our website, but we're going to be make available on a grander scale soon. And in fact, the main vehicle through which we're going to be making a lot of our materials available and open access to anybody who wants to use it for their own purposes is by working in partnership with the Harvard Lab Exchange, which is one of the largest, if you want, open access educational resources in the world. Is particularly geared towards the majority world, but in fact, anybody can sign up. And what we're putting together in collaboration with them is a whole cluster of teaching resources around data ethics that then, by using their wonderful platform, people who are interested in using it can modularize it, can shape it and customize it according to their own exigencies and the kind of training that they want to do themselves or they want to give to others. We also aim to make this multilingual so that this is something that can really be used by the whole community. Obviously, we're very happy to collaborate with people in putting these resources together, but our first priority for the coming year is to actually continue to work on material that can form the backbone of this resource, put it online, hopefully by next fall, and then open up discussions in the RDA community around how best to continue to use it. And of course, that will be one of the things we'll be hoping that maybe people working in the Birds of a Feather group here at the RDA would be interested in working with us on. This is really a collaborative activity. Like everything we do, we are hoping to be able to help coordinate and push forward some of those projects, but we very much would like them to be community projects that as much as possible are also picked up, used, changed, and revised by people who are working with us and are committed to this kind of work. So we do work with a variety of different stakeholders for the work we do at the EDI. These range from governance to NGOs and a variety of civic associations, research funders, obviously scholarly societies, scientific associations and networks, both national and transnational, and a variety of different academies and universities. And here there's a list of some of the institutions we've been working with and we continue to work with. But again, we're very happy to add to that list and to get in touch with anybody that we haven't been really collaborating with so far. And these are just examples of some of the work we've been doing, for instance, on research assessment practices. We all know very well that especially within the academic world, but really in the research world more generally, part to the issues we're having with taking the time to think through what may look like resilient and responsible data practices is the fact that that kind of work typically doesn't get rewarded or credited. So we're trying to make a big push as a group to also with policymakers to make this possible. One of the ways in which we meet also with our community as EDI is by organizing 2 meetings per year for our whole community. And so in the last year, we've managed to hold both an in-person event that actually just happened in Munich last week, and also a virtual event that we plan to do every 6 months. Our in-person events are also visible in a hybrid format. And again, you can find the videos for our latest event on our website, and more material from that will be coming out this week. We're just literally reorganizing it right now, given that the workshop has just ended. And the hope for us, we're now working with the RDA to make sure that the next in-person meeting will actually happen in occasion of the RDA conference in London in October, and hopefully as part of a pre-conference event that's going to happen the 5th of October in London, to which everybody is very warmly welcome here. And in fact, we welcome very much participation by everybody in helping us to shape that event, but also we're going to be co-hosting and participating in several other workshops in London during the conference itself. So we're hoping that, in fact, a lot of the discussions we have today are also helping us to shape what will then become in-person work in London going forward. One of the other things we're doing, and just now I'm going to stop, but just the last thing is we've published a series of blogs on our website, which are absolutely wonderful, and they're really documenting many of the different collaborations that we've been involved in so far, but also many really important reflections on what does it mean to do data ethics today, and how do we think about this going forward. Hilary Hanaho has contributed a wonderful blog that I encourage everybody to have a look at if you haven't already, but also just to emphasize that we have a call open for more blogs that we would love to keep publishing going forward. We of course make this all available also on Zenodo and various other channels, and hopefully is also flashed in within the RDA community. And so please get in touch with us if you would like to contribute something. We're utterly delighted. Another way to collaborate with the EDI is also to sign up as an affiliate in our network. This you can do very, very easily on our website. That means that you get news from us every now and then. We're not going to overwhelm your inboxes, but at least you get notification about when we are doing events and when important initiatives are being launched. And it also becomes a way for us to keep in touch with you, particularly in then relating our activities to all the other activities that are partners in this Birds of a Feather group. So the World Data Systems, the Leiden Center, and CODATA are actually putting together in this space. With this, I want to thank again all of our wonderful team who has helped me to put together this presentation so that you have a bit of a quick overview of what is going on at the EDI. I'm very happy to open up for discussion, for questions, and of course for any of my teammates in the EDI to come in with anything they want to supplement to this. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sabina, for that. And yeah, if anyone has any immediate reaction, Lauren, thank you.
Sure. So I think you were asking about collaboration, how we could work together. So I was typing, but I figured I'd just speak to. So we have a Health Data Commons working group in RDA. And one of the things we're interested in is data governance and how the reuse of data address the care principles and benefit sharing. So we would love to collaborate on that. So I'd be happy to have a meeting or however it would work best. But that's an active RDA working group that will actually be closing this year. So getting your feedback on our recommendations would be really nice. Yeah, so it's great to learn about this initiative.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you, Lauren. And definitely, if you could get in touch with us after this, that'd be brilliant. I think we're more than happy to provide feedback if that's useful to the working group on the work you've been doing so far, and particularly between me and Nathaniel. And we've definitely been doing quite a bit of work on the health space, particularly. And of course, with Paul and Kim, we also just did a data clinic looking at some of those issues. So that'd be really wonderful.
Brilliant. Yeah. Any other comments or questions from the audience?
Hello.
Hi, Joyce.
Yeah, hi. I'm glad the first speaker there touched on AI. It is actually a very interesting topic, to explore more, especially on ethics, because AI actually does not say what a human being might be thinking, and ethics is more or less more the human thinking. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Joyce. I think that's exactly right. We couldn't agree with you more. And of course, it's great that the RDA is doing a lot of work now on agentic AI. And I think one of the things that would be wonderful to do going forward is to actually start to integrate much more the work that we've been doing at the EDI and with the various partners, with Leiden, with Louise's work, with the work that's been happening in the World Data Systems on those kinds of things, with the work that is continues to happen at the RDA on agentic AI. I mean, we have already many discussions, we participated in joint panels, but just making sure that we integrate those considerations in that world as much as possible, because to be honest, agentic AI is about agents. And as much as some people would interpret it as the ambition to completely substitute agents, in fact, we know very well that the problem with thinking about agency in AI is exactly who then takes responsibility for the decisions that are taken. And maybe, in fact, I'm going to bring in Stefan on this because a lot of his work looks at these kinds of issues. So maybe, Stefan, if you want to comment.
Yeah, thank you. Sure. So two things maybe. One is just related to my own research. I'm very much worried about, well, I don't want to be fully negative. I'm just worried about certain challenges that come up about how AI tools and AI-driven automation, which includes much more than just like, AlphaFold or a specific agent, but it's like an integration of automated tools and workflows that come into the lab space, which is what I'm mostly interested in, how that might reshape responsible practices in the research process and how we generate trustworthy data. And so that's for me a huge worry about, kind of situational awareness. If we give off certain tasks to automated workflows or agents or systems, the opacity that comes in, and then how does accountability happen, even in basic research, but obviously much more in applied settings. And the second point I would like to say is actually something that Sabina mentioned, the living ethos, data ethics as a living ethos. And I'm kind of, as we get more complex, not just human thinkers and systems in the research process, how do we foster and maintain a good ethos? Because that has been problematic already now. And how and who do we teach? Because that's a huge issue on how to, had been mentioned that, data ethics is not just like this addendum and this checklist or whatever. And that's a huge problem for me when I teach data governance and ethics to, let's say, computer science, data science students. And in these new systems and dynamics, how do we get the living ethos to actually live I don't have an answer, but it's an important challenge, I think. I'll end there, sorry.
Thank you very much, Stefan. And I think maybe actually it's precisely speaking about some of those issues, given that it's so central to the work that they're doing, I'd like to shift the word to Louise Bezuidenhout, who can talk a little bit about all the work that they're doing in the Center for Science and Technology in Leiden, both in thinking about questions of open science, because that's where the chair for open science, looking at questions of equity and injustice resides, but also all the work that she's been doing together with various partners and also within the RDA on data equity, data education, and and very much also in partnership with what we've been discussing so far. Louise?
Oh, thanks, Sabina. Yeah, I was just putting a message in the chat to you saying we don't really work very much on AI, but I think we definitely should be working a bit more on it. So my center is a meta science center. So we do research on research. And some things that we're very interested in is relates to the global representation of knowledge communities and knowledge holders around the world within the central corpus of research data, and how we can become more inclusive to accommodate research generated in low resource settings or by other knowledge communities. And particularly thinking about how the infrastructures that we collect and disseminate knowledge are potentially not fit for purpose when we look at this expanding remit of what open science should be meeting according to the UNESCO recommendation. So I'm very interested in things relating to that, and very interested in things relating to research assessment and the ethics around how researchers themselves are judged and assessed according to their research outputs, and shifting the focus away from published articles to thinking more broadly about other ways of valorizing and rewarding researchers and knowledge producers for their contributions towards global challenges and research. So we've been very active in the formation and the promotion of the Barcelona Declaration for Open Research Information, which is a new declaration on the block that focuses on advocating for all data being used in assessment of researchers, research institutes, and other research-related activities to be made open and queryable, so that researchers and anyone who is questioning the research ecosystem can actually have a clear understanding, a transparent understanding of where the value lies and where the contributions lie. So a couple of related areas around data ethics that potentially more look at how ethics and data play out within the research landscape as well as beyond the research landscape. So maybe a slightly different shift from the big concerns about AI that were just being discussed.
Thanks, Louise. Yeah, and it definitely, those different contexts definitely play really important and different roles into the kinds of ethical questions that we're going to ask. I'm wondering if there is any other questions, maybe from the audience or the floor.
Yes, may I talk?
Hi.
I'm Nilza from Brazil. And,
nice.
I'm concerned about genomics data. So you were talking about privacy, and also I think you talked about a little bit about health. So my question is how to guarantee privacy and dignity to people that allowed a researcher to do the research, generate results, and by now they have no control. I think they have no control because they even know that people are accessing the data. Thank you.
Nathanael, do you want to pick it up or I pick it up?
Yeah, I'll just sort of add one thing. I think certainly within the health space, one thing that we have to think about and sort of develop an ethics for is thinking about consent and the various ways in which consent comes into the kind of whole life cycle of healthcare delivery service. So not just having consent as, yep, you've given consent once and now that health data can be used for a variety of reasons, but consistently coming back and checking in with consent and updating consent in a variety of ways. And this is something in which is being done in already lots of existing global health infrastructures, such as Native Bio, which is a great one to check out. I could put a link in that later. Really kind of focusing on that kind of shifting role of consent, I think is something that might be able to bring back parts of dignity to people who are used as research objects.
Yeah, I think maybe like one of the things also to add here, Nilsa, and thanks so much for bringing this up, is the fact that I think at RDA there's been so much really interesting work so far on a variety of different ways to think about data governance, including of sensitive data, health data, personal data. And so there's been work on trusted research environments and what that means. There's been work on data visitations and how this may, in fact, be a way to work with data, but without actually sharing the data per se, and so that we don't create problems to data subjects. And I think all of that work really needs to continue. And what we would like is to integrate it maybe better with more explicit ethical concerns. And this is partly also because for us at EDI, certainly, but I think many of our partners, certainly Louise and the group in Leiden, and many people at CODATA would agree that where we're thinking about medical data and health data, these issues are really obvious. Everybody knows that there are serious questions around privacy, confidentiality, and sensitivity there. But in fact, now that we can integrate data so much more easily, this is starting to affect also data produced, for instance, on environmental issues or data around communities at the social level, for instance, administrative data. And trying to have a discussion around what are the best ways to safeguard data subjects and people about which these data are in relation to all those different data is really important. So yeah, we would welcome very much your input going forward in thinking about this, and also thinking very practically about what kinds of recommendations to put together in terms of consent, but also in terms of thinking about what are safer ways to do data work in those areas, which is not gonna threaten or exploit people that offer their data up in the context of health discussions or health-related research.
You know,
yeah.
You know, I think that prospectively it's okay, because people by now would know that they can, researchers cannot guarantee privacy, cannot guarantee confidentiality 100%. And they are conscious, sometimes not that conscious, but they are conscious that it's a kind of thing that can be used for anybody. But I'm concerned about the banks or the database. By now, I'm concerned about type A declaration for World Medical Association. So we are discussing biobanks and data banks. So I'm concerned about these old consents, you know. But I know that's a hard issue or question, but I think that we are a kind of violating our own meaning of trust. I mean, people trust in us at the best. They give us their samples, data, and so on. But now we cannot guarantee the things we promise. for them. So for me, that's the almost a philosophical question, almost a not reasonable to have this situation. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe actually, thank you very much. This is great and is lots of feedback. Maybe Paul, do you want to kind of think about this also in the context of the data health clinic that we've carried out?
Yeah, thanks. I mean, so I personally am not an expert in these questions, but I think what we have encountered in one of our data clinics with the Austrian National Public Health Institute that was tasked to implement a European health data space was the question around secondary use of health data. And here the question, of course, of consent is a quite delicate one and was one of the central themes of our discussions and the sort of work that students put in the clinic together with the collaborator. Because the question was what happens to consent, how to modify, update consent for the use of secondary health data, which is usually framed as the use of health data for other purposes than initially meant or initiated. And one delicate question around that was also in combination with AI, because I think the European health data space legislation right now.
That was my next question. Thank you.
Yeah. Lots of the European health data space legislation as of now frames AI in terms of research practices, or lots of the things that you can do with AI modeling or training, especially, is framed in terms of research, which would allow actually the use of secondary health data, as I am informed. So it was without providing definite solutions, of course, which is very difficult to give at this stage, especially at this stage of more or less rolling out, implementing the health data space. Consent was a constant question, and a very difficult to answer when we look into the future with more and more AI applications introduced into the health space, but also the question of secondary health data.
People introduced the concept of dynamic consent. That which means the patient would allowed or not allowed anytime. So in real time. So it's not reasonable because you have a original ancient population, ancestors, Aborigines, Amerindians, so on. You have a lot of vulnerable people that cannot do that. It's a specific group that have access to internet and computer and so on. That is other question that makes me reflect. Thank you a lot for the answer.
Thank you for your comments. Great discussion. I think as well, in terms of thinking about the accessibility, has also been something that's been really focused on at the EDI in terms of how can the EDI continue to be accessible at a global scale. And so one thing that's being done within the educational part of the work there is uploading the work to a space which provides access to low bandwidth users to make sure that everything is continued to be accessible. And also, Nathanael, while you were talking there, the kind of discussions I think about privacy and health often kind of come at this tension that we see in research. They're not currently on Lab Exchange, but soon to be on Lab Exchange in the coming year, Levy. But yeah, certainly thinking about this tension between the actionability and accountability of data. We're particularly seeing in kind of crisis areas of science that science or researchers who have data are told to be as actionable as possible with the data, trying to make sure that it's actionable for research, industry, and other purposes. And this sometimes might feel like a trade-off between that and accountability, where we're thinking much more about the kind of dignity, the moral aspects of handling data. And so there's been some recent work by me and Sabina looking at this, particularly within health research data infrastructures. And I'll share a link there, thinking about how we can support ideas around data diversity and participative governance, as well as making infrastructures very visible, both around how, who, and why they're funded. Are there anyone else like to join the discussion or conversation?
May I ask a question?
Of course, Hilary.
Well, it's a bit more practical, but about the next steps for the group. So, as birds of a feather, are your also, because all the people that are on at the meeting now and those who aren't able to attend or in different time zones, of course, one of the ways is for us to then establish something more permanent within RDA, if that is the wish and the willingness and the intention. Either as, I think, an interest group or a working group, probably an interest group in this case, I suppose. And maybe try and understand what the other people who've joined today would be, if they would be interested in that. I think the numbers show that there's definitely an interest and a need for a group like this in RDA, and we very much welcome it.
That would be fantastic, Hilary. I mean, certainly the hope we would have, and I'm sure, I mean, if I may, I'm also speaking for Louise, who's been working with us very much on this, and people like our collaborators at CoData and World Data Systems. I mean, the hope was indeed that we can start the discussions here and then make it into more permanent interest group within the RDA, potentially also starting from actual work at the in-person conference in London. And in that respect, I would invite anybody who is here and would like to collaborate with us in doing this to email us separately, put your name in the chat, or just let us know, because our feeling is indeed, as Nathanael was saying at the beginning, there's been so much work around those topics at the RDA, but not a dedicated working group. And so we'll be delighted to be able to help to coordinate this and then see what the community comes up with.
Great. So that's the date, the 5th of October.
Yeah, and I would just like to echo Sabina there in terms of really hoping that this is just the beginning of trying to lament a longer group within the RDA, and trying to evolve this into something a little bit more permanent and greater than the Birds of Feather group. So yeah, look forward for that, and hopefully if you want to get involved, please contact us, and there'll be many discussions after this to keep that going. There's a comment from Lars, which I think is a good comment to make, that he would love to see an interest group that can also work with collating information on ethics that is spread out in many working groups or outputs. I think that's a great point, and it's something where I hope that many of us in the room today can also be part of that work by both being part of this group as well as other groups, in order to kind of cross-fertilize the ideas between groups, and trying to embed that in every group would be fantastic. Yeah. Well, would anyone like to have the kind of last round of discussions or points? Be happy to have it for the last 5 to 10 minutes. If there's anything pressing that people would like to ask. But if not, you don't feel free to comment. I would just like to say one more time, thank you all so much for coming today and allowing us to start this conversation for what I expect will be a much longer road and also a longer collaboration working together with all of you. Our contact information will be on the collaborative notes and discussion, so we hope forward to keep a lot more of these discussions going. And from there, yeah, we can hopefully embed data ethics as another core principle among both the RDA and much of the data work that happens between us all. So thank you.
Thank you so much, you, Nathanael, and Sabine, and everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Nelza.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce. And yeah, I guess we can keep this on a little bit longer if there's anything else that the team would like to say.
Can you save the chat, actually, Nathaniel? In the meantime, I've also saved it, but just to make sure that at least two of us have it.
Yeah.
In fact, everybody in the team, can you please save the chat if you can, so that we will have a record of this?
I can probably get you a record, Sabina, as well, if you need it, but
that'd be great. Thank you. Just to make sure that we have the names of the people who volunteer to give us a hand.
I'm going to leave so you can chat, but I'm going to assign you as the host now, Nathaniel. Just a second.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well done. That
Thank
was
you, Connie,
excellent. Really enjoyed it. Thank you. Looking forward to the next steps.
Thanks so much, Connie, and best of luck with the rest of the week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, thank you all for coming today. Sorry that I forgot to mention a few of your names, but thank you, Sabina, for reminding me.
I'm really sorry, but I just thought I was trying to communicate. Me and Nathaniel were communicating through the chat. What's up? Like, how do we manage to communicate on an instantaneous basis? But I think we did a good job.
That was really well introduced and chaired, really well.
Yeah, thanks so much, Nathaniel. That was fabulous work, actually.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks. And I'll give a quick call to Lou to make sure that she was happy about this. Because I really, Nathaniel, I really understood that she was okay with the idea of focusing on EDI. So it wasn't really okay.
I thought it was
I understood
okay.
in the end.
But I think the text was maybe a little bit more like, this is a little bit different to the intended plan of the group coming together, having all these different representatives to establish a community of practice. The thing is, we can't even start a community of practice without having an interest group. We can't have an interest group until we've had a birds of feather.
But I mean, would she have wanted to present with slides? Because I was imagining that she would want to have some slides or so. I don't know. Anyhow, I can try and talk with her to just make sure. But just let's keep it in mind, because I definitely don't want her to feel in any way excluded or that we're taking over the session. I mean, that definitely wasn't the intention. The question is more like, if people don't show up, something needs to happen.
Yeah.
Okay. All righty. Yeah. It's always a bit difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, it was difficult as well, just to be able to get in contact with David and Andrew, who also didn't.
I mean, it's not. I mean, I'm well aware of that. Me and Suchit know that it's not the easiest thing to get this group mobilized. Yeah, I think if we end up doing other sessions like this more online, I think this was important. I think to do it like this because we had to introduce the whole topic, right? But from now on, it's got to be workshop-like. So we give people assignments, get them to work. You know, I mean, we have to make it interactive, basically. But I don't think we could have really done it today because the first time. So, I mean, what do you do?
Yeah, I agree. I think, yeah, it's a long process, I think, to even work to establish ourselves in the RDA. It's not like we can bunny hop any of the steps either. So it's good to have done this.
But attendance was great, eh? I mean, in the end, we had like almost 60 people interested and more than 30 attending. So, I mean, for this kind of group, is pretty good.
Yeah. And it's great that Lars said that he's happy to help with starting the interest group. He's someone in the community who's very active.
And it was great that Hillary came. That was incredibly nice of her to show up. So also she's a bit more updated also on what's going on.
Yeah, so, just there's also a bunch of stuff in the collaborative document thing, especially that Lauren Maxwell also seems to have a lot of ideas.
Oh, fab.
Yep, that's good.
And,
brilliant.
Yeah, so sorry, we're just two computers here.
That's great, yeah.
Yeah, that's fabulous, actually. And maybe, Nathanael, no, wait a second, you're not working in the next month. So let's just keep that document also together with the chat. And then over the next few meetings, we try and action it. So that we make something out of it.
And we just need to, there's a few questions, 3 questions. Describe what your session was about, highlight some of the 5 key outcomes from the session, and what collaborations and synergies happened in the group is something that we need to fill out by the 2nd of April. And we send that back to the RDA so we can be included in the plenary technical report.
All righty.
I don't mind doing this.
You don't mind? It would be really, really great if you get it started, at least, Nathanael, and then I'm happy to come in on this, and I'm sure the others too. But I think, I mean, in the end, it's probably just a very short team, but we just have to have a point person who makes sure that, if you take care of it, that'd be really, really good. Thank you. Can also, sorry, because I completely forgot on Friday, but could I ask you all whether you intend to be online or wherever you are, because the next meeting we have scheduled for EDI actually is the day after the Easter holidays. I just wanted to make sure that people are around, because if are not, I would just say let's keep it, because it makes no point for 3 or 4 of us to meet. I mean, it's good that we meet and we catch up on what has been happening after the town hall, but
don't we have a meeting scheduled on the 24th already? So that's before the Easter.
We do. That's true. Okay.
Yeah. But I will be back after Easter, so I will be there on the 7th.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so actually, and then I will say this. I will not be able to make the 24th because I'm in Como doing, I think my keynote is exactly then on biodiversity, so I can't be there. But I think it's good if you're all available, then it's great if you can meet, and at least to make sure that the big action points for after the town hall have been dealt with. Or whether we do the one in April or not, you guys tell me. I think I could about manage it, but online. Is everybody okay to do it? Okay, then fine, we leave it.
Yeah.
All right, just to make sure. Brilliant. Okay, so I think that's that, right? Thanks again so much, Nathanael. That was really, really great. So, I mean, it's only thanks to you that we managed to do this. So thank you for this.
You're welcome. Well done, everyone, as well. Thank you for contributing.
Thanks for coming, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care.
Thanks, Nathanael.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks, and well done, Nathanael.
Cheers, Kate.